Hi BookTube, I'm back. I'm sorry it took such an extended absence. I just needed a bit of a break and now I'm back. I still am getting over my cold, so I sound a little weird, but I put makeup on so I don't look too deathly right now. But I have to get into the best books and worst books and all that kind of stuff before the time for that is over. So I'm here, sounding kind of crummy, but filming anyways. So this book is going to be the best books I read in 2018. And I know I'm going to get a comment because I get a comment every year, so I'm just going to say off the bat, no, these books were not released in 2018. These are books that I read in 2018. So that's it. They're not in any particular order, except for the last one. Okay, so I read Jerusalem's Book 1 and 2 by Alan Moore. I still have Book 3 to read, but Books 1 and 2 were amazing. Book 1 is about various people who all live in Northampton and at various time periods, and Book 2 follows a particular child from that area who has died and gone to the upstairs, and the way that he messes with time and uses time and space and everything, it's so cool, and the language really reflects that. If you're really into kind of like postmodernism, definitely pick this up. Moore is an author who like understands the connections between words and stories and uses that masterfully. He also develops truly unique and really kind of strange characters. You find truly unique characters in Alan Moore's work. Next is The Dodecahedron by Paul Glennon, a Canadian book. This also wins the title for the hardest to spell title. Anyways, this is a series of interconnected short stories, but they aren't necessarily connected just by their plots. Some stories share plot points, or characters, or just phrases from other stories. This would be impressive on its own, but the narrative he creates is also really interesting. You know, he immediately grabs your attention from the first story with a story of a young boy who's convinced he has to save his father's library, and the way he has to do that is by eating it. So he eats the pages of the books in his father's library. And it continues with stories that hypothesize that the ancient Romans were actually the first people to discover the American continent, and that the Catholic Church is involved in this cover-up to kind of hide this fact. Or there's a super rich CEO who's obsessed with collecting messages in bottles. Then there's the Fionavar Tapestry. Don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly. It's by Gavriel Kay, another Canadian author. This is a fantasy series comprised of 3 books. And this man helped Christopher Tolkien prepare the Silmarillion for publication. So like, this guy knows fantasy. You can tell he draws influences from all the great fantasy masters, so it's not just like a Lord of the Rings carbon copy. It's its own story, but you can see the influences, if you know what I mean. This is a book to check out if you love classic fantasy, which I love. It's about a group of college friends who travel to another dimension, another universe, which is the world of Fionavar, and discover that their fates are kind of linked to the world there. And he's really great at juggling all the different events that are going on because, you know, they're not all together, they're all over the place. So he's got different events and different scenes and different characters, and none of it gets kind of confusing. He's great at, you know, keeping things connected, but also, you know, this is happening over here and that's happening over there with these certain characters. It's hard to do that, I find, with a large cast of characters sometimes. He does it well. Next is Small Gods by Terry Pratchett. This is part of the Discworld. It's a standalone in the Discworld series. Might sound confusing if you're not aware of the Discworld series, but I'm not going to bother explaining it right now. And I picked this primarily because of the last scene in the book. It is just the perfect embodiment of Pratchett's writing, in that it's not always about humor, it's also about endearing, and it's about philosophy, and the way that he creates characters that you just feel so much for, and that he holds up as like someone that we should admire. It's amazing. This book is a critical look at organized religion and those who use religion for political gain, but it also doesn't bash the faith behind the religion. So it's not, you know, like, oh, we're all atheists, that's the solution. No, it's about like, no, you're using the faith wrong. So in the book we follow Brutha, who's chosen as a prophet for the god Om, who is currently stuck in the form of a tortoise. So it's not all, you know, philosophy, religion. It's also kind of funny because our god is a tortoise. I also have to mention another religious science fiction because that was a theme this year, apparently. This is A Canticle for Lebowitz by Walter M. Miller Jr. This is about monks in a post-apocalyptic world who are charged with protecting man's scientific knowledge after a event wiped it all out. I really appreciate that Miller didn't speak condescendingly to his readers. He didn't translate the Latin that he used. He left it up to readers to pick up on the religious allusions, and he didn't spell out what certain scientific things were. You know, I love it when the author puts trust in his readers. He trusts that they're intelligent enough to either know these things or to be able to look them up. Instead of constantly saying, oh, you don't know what this is, so I'm going to tell you because I'm better than you, which you find some authors do. And it was really, really quite interesting. It was an interesting method about writing about future technology, because if you look at a lot of the stuff from the 1950s that talk about future technology, it seems really kind of outdated and weird. But what he did is he wiped out all technology in the book, and they had to start afresh. So it doesn't matter what kind of technology he used, it wouldn't be outdated, because these are people creating new technology, which is really cool. Okay, I also read another fantasy, Gardens of the Moon by Steven Erikson. It's really great. This is the first book in the Malazan Book of the Fallen epic fantasy series. I think there's like 14 or more books in this series at this point. It's a story of an empire fighting to conquer one of the last free cities. We get perspectives on both sides of the war, but it's more than just battles. It's about the subterfuge and the politics and the personal goals of the people that we follow. It's also one of the most unique magic systems I've ever read about, where magic users draw power from what is called a warren, which is almost like another dimension that they can also step into and travel through. So it's really cool. And he, again, was able to flesh out this enormous cast of characters, and it really made me look forward to reading the next book in the series as soon as possible. And then another Canadian author made my list, surprise, surprise, and this is The Dead Kid Detective Agency, Connect the Scots by Evan Munday. So this is the fourth book in the Dead Kid Detective Agency series. It follows October Schwartz, who accidentally raises the ghosts of some kids who all died throughout different periods of history in nefarious ways. And they work together to kind of solve their mysteries, the mysteries of their deaths, and kind of the overarching mystery that connects the series together. It intertwines history and pop culture references and humor into a really compelling, thrilling story. If that hasn't caught your attention yet, you know my opinion about YA if you've been with me for a while. This is a YA novel, and it's made my best of books every year it's been out. I love this series. I can't recommend it highly enough. And then there's The Fall of Hyperion by Dan Simmons. This is the amazing sequel to Hyperion, which is about a group of people on a pilgrimage to find the Shrike, which is this creature that will either grant them a wish or will kill them. The sequel uses the stories from the first book as a base to further expand on the universe, giving it more depth as we get to explore more of the political, philosophical, and social dynamics at play in the universe. And the writing, the characterizations, the philosophical elements all get top points for me. This was such an enjoyable book and such a thought-provoking book at the same time. I'd say that Hyperion Cantatos is a great place to start if you're into fantasy and want to get into science fiction, as it contains elements from both sides. Now, the best book of the year, I'm not going to talk about too much because it's technically not a novel. More than 50% of my reading this year has been graphic novels or comics, and my favorite book of the year is Moonshadow by DeMatteis and Muth, and I have a whole separate video about the best comics of 2018, and I'll talk more in depth about it there. But yes, Moonshadow, absolutely loved it. So that's it. Those are my best books of 2018. Let me know what your favorite book of 2018 was, and thank you for watching.